Hi, this is Ron Nutter with the next installment of Are You Disaster Ready? It the folks in Houston have gone through so much and they have a ways to go, but now we're looking at the time I'm recording this that other folks in Florida, possibly other areas, will be having to deal with a similar, if not worse, situation. It makes the release of this video somewhat bittersweet. It's information that needs to go out, and at least now there may be some reason that more of you will take a look at it, and that's protecting your personal information. So much in times of disaster, you have to start dealing with things, after the disaster has finished what it's going to do, and start dealing with the aftermath of you know getting insurance claims filed, getting possessions, if not restored, replaced, at least is what you can. And then there comes the thing of having to produce all this paperwork and justifications. And when you're leaving your house for what may be the last time, you don't know when you may be back, and you may not think to have certain things. So this video is going to do things in two separate stages. First, we'll talk about getting ready before the event happens, and then if something in a disaster has happened and you haven't been able to get some of the preparations done, how to start getting that information, at least getting an idea of what you do and don't have, kind of doing an inventory. But we'll talk about all that when you've got the time in advance, or even in absence of a situation that's coming literally to knock on your door, where you may have to leave your house and most of not everything that you own. Having some record of things is, to quote the MasterCard commercial, priceless, because the devil is in the details. So having copies of everything, and some people have a red binder, for lack of a better color, where there's these insertable pockets. It's a three ring punch, and you just put in there, and one's got insurance, one's got your will, one's got your medical directive, one's got the title to the car, one's got title to the house, mortgage information, your information or credit cards. That's all fine and good if you've got that, but if you don't have it with you, then those preparations really haven't helped you. So one of the things we're going to go through and do is discuss how to get ready for that. And one of the tools that I've used is something from Fujitsu ScanSnap. It's their portable scanner, well, portable-ish. And this is one that I have used for several years. It's very versatile, very functional. I've used it on my Mac, but it's equally at home on a PC. And it can scan two-sided documents in one pass. It can do color. It can do black and white. But the main thing is it helps you get that process started. And that's something where if you really, if you can't have the paper documentation, but sometimes that's not practical for whatever reason. And if your preparation start off with, well, I've got it in the safety deposit box at the bank. What if the bank is underwater? What if the building is destroyed? Then you're left with little to, if anything, to start proving your case to the insurance company, to the government for financial assistance in major disasters. So the more you can do now is going to be the better off that you'll be in the event that sometimes, and if it doesn't, hey, you've spent a few times, you've got everything together. Everything that we're going to go over, I will discuss in a report that I've made available. If you go to the URL that's right here on the bottom, or you can snap the QR code with your smartphone and it will take you there. When you sign up for the list that I'm going to be doing as a result of this book and these videos, I'll send you a report I've come up with with the different items that we have talked about so far. Certainly the Fujitsu ScanSnap is one piece of that. They also make a very nice carry case for it, not that outrageous. But the one thing that distinguishes this scanner from some of the others is it's not just a one and done scanner. You have the option of powering it off of USB, or you can run a separate power supply with it, which is all included. But this scanner, there's any scanner that has the document feeder like this one does, is going to have parts that will wear out. There's going to be the rubber wheels that grip things, and those are called consumables in the copier tray. This is something that you can get those parts and replace it. Now, this is a scanner that it's about $250-ish. It varies as anything with on Amazon or other companies. But it at least gives you a very quality scan. And what I have done personally is I've got several IT certifications where I've had to keep the paperwork for years, not only the actual certificates themselves, but the exam reports, because early on, if you didn't have that exam report and something happened at the vendor, then you really had no proof that you'd passed the exam. So I've got all that digitized. So if something happens, I've got that all with me. So when you start pulling things together, you'll need to build a list. And this is where when you subscribe to the mailing list, and I'm not going to send you a lot of stuff, folks. It's going to be as I find things that I think are of interest, when I come out with editions or new books in the series, because this is just one of the topics that I cover that you'll be one of the first to know. Now, there are a couple of affiliate links in the document I'll send you. If you happen to buy that scanner or you find something that's more appropriate to your needs, great. I mean, I'll get a little bit of commission off, but that's not going to change the price that you're going to pay for the scanner. It's not going to raise it or lower it. But the main thing is find a good scanner. Now, one of the things that I do is use something called Evernote. Now, there's also OneNote that's an option as well. Evernote, and this is why the big thing that the ScanSnap has become very popular, is it integrates with Evernote. So you scan it in and you tell it to send it to Evernote. You can even tell it what file folder that you want it to be in. So it helps you get things organized right out of the gate. As a part of this process, it also sets up a PDF. So if you need to give that to the insurance company or you've got to produce something, they'll be able to see that hopefully they can see that you scanned it from an original. Now, sometimes they still want that embossed seal or something to prove it, but in a disaster situation, this is going to be better than nothing. So and I would encourage you with Evernote, the beauty of theirs is when you scan it, even if you don't have the full-blown subscription, it's backed up to one of their data centers so that you always have a backup somewhere. Now, granted, the main copy will be on this very laptop or desktop that you're doing it with. So you'll have a copy there, but hopefully you'll do it with a laptop so you can grab that and you'll have the information there. But you'll also have a copy in case something happens to the laptop. Say you forget the power supply. You can at least have a copy that somebody can get to. And there's ways where you can protect your login with Evernote, and there's comparable options available with OneNote as well. I just haven't used that integration with OneNote, where this is one of the things that the Fujitsu ScanSnap is really well known for, is how tightly it integrates with Evernote, and it just makes the whole process as simple as possible. So you'll want to start off with, and in one of the pages in the report that you'll get when you subscribe, is a starting list. Now, some people will have more items than others. Some will have less. But in getting the process started, this kind of gives you a check sheet as to what that you've readily got at hand, what you may have to go find. And if you want a backup copy somewhere else, store it with a trusted family member out of state where they're going to be hopefully out of the same area that you're in. And if you want to have them put it in their safety deposit box, that's fine. But if the bank burns down, those boxes are not meant to protect paper. So there's still, if you're trying to mitigate as much risk in this as you can, then that's something else to consider. The the categories are, things you might not think of. When you get new credit cards, the little folder that you get the cards in that has all the contact information for the credit card company, that's a good thing to scan in. I would either, if you don't get your monthly financial statements in PDF form, there's usually a way where you can print it online into a PDF, or if you get the paper copy in the mail, you can scan that in. Having a relatively recent financial statement gives you several valuable pieces of information. It gives you the phone number of the institution. It gives you probably a special number to call if you have a problem or you're trying to deal with something, because it is in those companies' best interest to help you in a disaster, because that's good business and it's good PR. Everybody wins in that situation. So, it's just the more you have available, the better you will be. Certainly scanning your credit cards, both front and back. Now, granted, you can't use those, but in an emergency, at least proves that you have them. Scanning what you can of your passport. Again, that much more information you have, because if something happens, it falls out of your pocket, it gets damaged. Same thing for your driver's license. At least you can prove you have some of this. Your utility statements. Some of this may seem very trivial, but it really isn't, because in a disaster, you need every bit you can. So it's not something you have to do all at once, and it's going to be, as things change, you change insurance companies, you change locations, what banks or financial companies you use for your accounts. Those are going to change. All that's important to keep up with, so that in the event something happens, that you've at least got that information. Certainly keeping scanned copies of your tax returns, or if you're using something like I do, TurboTax, it creates a PDF. You can put that right into Evernote. That's not a problem. Anything that you put in there, you may not think you need it now, but you may end up finding that you need it and didn't realize it. So we've pretty much covered getting ready before the fact. Well, what happens if you got ready and now that information is not available to you, or worst case, you just hadn't gotten to it? And let's face it, life happens. If that is the case, then the second page of the report that you'll get when you subscribe will give you at least a starting point. You can take an inventory of what you have, and then that starts showing you what you don't have. Anything that you have is one step closer to getting things back to some degree of normalcy. So while it's better if you can to do this up front, if you're some of the folks in Florida right now that are heeding the governor's very prudent warning to start evacuating now instead of waiting until it hits landfall, you may have not been able to take those steps yet. So, take what you've got with you, and then you can start building back from there. And you may find out that while you don't have a copy of your insurance policy, you may have that insurance card. That gives you information to start with. One of the things, if you happen to have in your collection of papers copies of a tax bill that shows that, yes, you did own this house, or you did own that car or trailer or what have you, that is something that could be very useful. And like I say, it's sometimes just the little things. So it's going to be baby steps. Do a little bit here, a little bit there, because when you have to evacuate at a moment's notice, you may not have some of the things you think you did, or you thought you had it with it and don't. And this is where using something like Evernote or OneNote, at least you've got it backed up to where, as long as you can get internet access, you can start proving that, yes, I did have that. So anything you can do today is better than not having anything at all. And if you didn't get that done, well, things are not totally lost. You've probably got some things with you. You may find that one day you were running late to the office or running to the store to go do something, and you shove some mail in one of the pockets of your vehicle. Those might be sources of information for utilities to prove that you owned a property, for credit cards to show that, yes, you did have that credit card, and the contact information, because as soon as you can, granted, you've got to take care of yourself and your family first, but reaching out to the companies you do business with saying, hey, I've had this problem. This is what's going on. I need you to work with me. Dealing with them up front is going to make it much easier as the recovery process goes. And any company worth their salt should immediately be able to start projecting when they see a disaster situation like what happened in Houston, like what unfortunately may happen to some parts of Florida. And they may already be prepared to say, hey, we know there's a problem. We'll work with you, because what are you not going to get in the days following a major disaster, or even a minor one in some cases? You're not going to get the mail. You may not have internet access. And this is where one of the things that I talked about in another video, having more than one cell phone on different carriers, because carrier A may be totally dead in the water, but B is working. So that's a little bit off topic from what we're talking about in this video, but it's something that is a part of your process. And in terms of your personal information, there's another thing we haven't really touched, and it's almost a whole nother video in and of itself, and we'll talk about that one at a later time. But start documenting, if you haven't already, your login accounts for all your online sites, because that's something that you will need and be very important, especially if you have to use a computer that's not yours. If you have been storing the logon names or IDs or account names and the passwords, if you're using somebody else's computer, you're not going to have that available. You're going to have to go from memory, and memory in a disaster situation is not as good as we would like it to be. So I've kind of got you thinking about the process. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Leave me a comment here. I'm glad to have a discussion with you in the comments. If a large enough group of you wants to get together, I'm certainly willing to set up a video conference so that I can, help you as best I can. Because having spent 7 years as a volunteer responder with emergency management when I lived in another state, I've seen firsthand what can happen when people aren't ready. And so a lot of this can be avoided. Not everything, because sometimes, something will happen that you haven't planned for. But the more you can do today is that much less that you have to worry about later on. And like I said, it's the little things that sometimes may not think they're a big deal, such as if you've been through a divorce. Well, you probably need to have a copy of the divorce decree in your record somewhere, because you may have to prove that, yes, I was married, but now I'm not. Although the courts should have access to this information and other companies should be able to get to it with appropriate authorization, the more you can produce up front is the better, and that things will be for you and the easier they will be. So it's one step at a time. Don't think you've got to do this all at once. It's going to take time, but you work on a little bit here, a little bit there, and things will be a little tolerable. So, one more time, if you want to get a copy of that report, and it's not a long one, it's not going to keep you up nights reading, but it will show you the scanner that I've been using and the case that I would suggest that you do use. And there are other scanners out there, but this is the one that I personally use and am very thrilled with. It's been very reliable. And then you also have a checklist to either, as you are putting your information together now before something happens, or if you're dealing with things in the aftermath, helping you figure out what you do and don't have available. It's at least a start. And it's not, one thing won't work for everybody, but at least it gives you a basis to start from. So as soon as you subscribe to the list, within usually a few minutes. It might take a little bit longer depending on your email provider and your internet connection, but you should have the report fairly soon and get started. Like I say, if you have any questions, please leave me a comment. I'd be glad to help you however I can. So stay safe, and if a disaster happens, take care of you and your family first. We'll see you next time.